So with that, Debbie, will you start the opening prayers and we'll get started.
I will indeed, and we will go right to them since time is of the essence. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us again. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about thus far? Okay. Then we are going to proceed with filling in the blanks, so to speak. We're talking about the 8 great bodhisattvas and the 8 great male bodhisattvas and the 8 great female bodhisattvas. So we're going to go right into talking about them tonight. And then we'll get into day 6 of the text, and we'll start talking about that. It's a complex section, so we're not going to get through it all tonight, but we can begin to do it, and it'll continue through the next week, I'm sure, maybe even a little bit longer than that. But it's all necessary to understand the Bardo Thodol. So if everybody has the sheets of paper, the mandala frames that I had sent to everybody, and if you can get those ready, would be great. So we're going to need the one where we are using like this. If you can see this here. This is the one that we're going to be filling the blanks in. So hopefully everybody can have that available. So tonight, to get started, we'll do the purification practice on page 14. So Ezra, I see that you're with us this evening. If you will read the page 14, if you will read the first mantra, and then in the small print there is the English translation of that mantra. And then when you continue reading up to the bottom of page 15, where it begins the mantra, the 100 syllable mantra of Vajrasattva. Then I will lead everybody in the English, just to refresh everybody's mind with that. And then Gary, will you recite the 100 syllable mantra as on page 15 and 16, and please repeat that 3 times. So if you will do that, will be very good. So, but not until after I do the English. Okay, so if we can begin, Ezra, if you will begin, please.
Om A Om Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu A Om Rula Rula Om Jo Om. From the field of reality's expanse, uncreated and pure, within a celestial palace, which is a seminal point of light, pure, unceasing, and radiant, through the natural expressive power of one's own mind, uncontrived and empty, intrinsic awareness, radiant and empty, arises in the form of Vajrasattva, seated upon a bejeweled throne, adorned with lotus, sun, and moon cushions. The right hand holds a Vajra at the heart, symbolizing the union of awareness, of absolute wisdom, and emptiness. The left hand supports a bell resting on the hip, symbolizing the union of wisdom, appearances, and emptiness. And the head is adorned with a garland of perfect Buddhas, representing the 5 enlightened families of those gone to bliss. Thus, Vajrasattva manifests in the form of the Buddha body of perfect resource, exquisitely adorned with silks and jewels, seated in the posture of royal ease, with the right leg extended and the left drawn in. Radiating at the heart is the seed syllable Hum, surrounded by the 100 syllable mantra.
Okay. Can you read the
little?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. It is the unified intention of the body, speech, and mind of the 42 peaceful and 58 wrathful deities of the great Buddha field that displays the wisdom that cuts through all ignorance to manifest their wisdom for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Did you want me to read the 100 syllable mantra?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
You did perfect there. So now here is the 100 syllable mantra. I just want to read this in English with everybody. So, and then Gary is going to read the Sanskrit part. So the 100-syllable purification mantra of Vajrasattva. Om, Vajrasattva Samaya, help to protect my vow to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind, heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realizations of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus, I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. So, Gary, if you will read the Sanskrit, please.
Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manu Palaya, Vajrasattva Tinopa, Tishtadredo Me Baba, Suto Kyo Me Baba, Supo Kyo Me Baba, Anu Rakto Me Baba, Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa, Sarva Karma Sutsa Me, Sitsan Shriya Kuru Hung, Ha 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 Ho, Bhagavan, Sarva Tathagata Vajra Mame Mutsa, Vajra Baba, Maha Samaya Sattva A. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manu Palaya. Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishta Dredo Me Baba. Supo Kayo Me Baba. Supo Kayo Me Baba. Anu Rakto Me Baba. Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa. Sarva Kama Sutsa Me Sitsan Shriya Kuru Hung. Ha 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 ho, Bhagavan, Sarva Tathagata, Vajra Mame Mutsa, Vajra Baba, Mahasamaya Sattva A. Om, Vajra Sattva Samaya, Manupalaya, Vajra Sattva Tinopa, Tishta Dredo Me Baba, Suto Kiyo Me Baba, Supo Kiyo Me Baba, Anu Rakto Me Baba, Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa, Sarva Karma Sutsa Me, Sitsan Shriya Kuru Hung, Ha 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 Ho, Bhagavan, Sarva Tathagata Vajra Mame Mutsa, Vajra Baba Maha Samaya Sattva A.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So in the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about the 5 Buddha families, and we've been filling in the mandala frame that I sent everybody. If you've missed the those talks that we had, or you want to review them, they are available on YouTube. And if you need the link for that, we can give you that. If you already have it, then that's good. Go right to it if you need to refresh your memory. So we need to complete what we were talking about with the peaceful deities. So just one moment. So now if I go, okay. So here is the frame that we've been talking about. And so what we have been filling in here in the center is the blue family, the white family is in the east, the yellow family is in the south, the red family is in the west, and the green family is in the north. So there's many other reference points that we went over in past weeks and so on. And we talked about that this is a 3-dimensional mandala. We're only looking at it, looking down on it. So we don't see the 3 dimensions in this way, but we need to understand that it is standing upright like this image in the upper left-hand corner as we look at this picture, like a stupa or like a bell or like a sitting Buddha, like a Buddha in meditation position. So there's the center, there's the eastern portion, the southern portion, the western, and the northern portion is another way of referencing this. So at the very top, all at the top level, are these the center portions here where we see the blue, we see the white, we see the yellow, the red, and the green. So we went into identifying them. Now we are going to look at this section below that. So here in this white section, if you're looking at the screen, you can see the image I've got on the screen. You can see that. You can see the yellow section here and the red section and the blue and the green section. So here is where the bodhisattvas are. So they are at a level that is just below the Buddhas being the highest level, and now are the bodhisattvas. And the bodhisattvas, of course, are the indestructible holy beings, and these are the great bodhisattvas. So these bodhisattvas are, we think of them, they are symbolic of the highest levels of human being who are purifying on the bodhisattva levels and to become a Buddha, to be able to go to the next level. The bodhisattvas remain at this bodhisattva level either because, or maybe in combination with, because they need to purify more subtle qualities and so on. The great bodhisattvas are there because they want to be able to help all sentient beings to be able to get on the path, stay on the path, have result on the path, and be able to become bodhisattvas themselves, and eventually they become Buddhas to help them. So the 8 great bodhisattvas are like the sons and the daughters of the Buddha families that we went and talked about last week. So each of those has a mother and father aspect to them. And these are the spiritual sons and the spiritual daughters are these 8 great bodhisattvas, actually 16 when you said it's 8 male and 8 female. So we start in the center, there are no bodhisattvas. There are no bodhisattvas. This is the Buddha family, and they do not have bodhisattvas associated with them. So it begins in the East here in this white family. So we'll start there. And in this family here is the bodhisattva. I'm going to change screens here. I can do that. Ta-da-ta-da. There we go. All right. So now, if anybody has questions, you can always interrupt. I don't mind being interrupted when we're talking about these things. Okay. So you have to speak up because I'm turning off your pictures, so we'll have plenty of room here. Okay. All right, so here again, so here's the 42 assembled peaceful deities. And here's the primordial Buddha Samantabhadra. And here's Varanchana, who is in the center in that blue family. This is the Buddha family. And then here is Vajrasattva Ascobia that is in the East, in the white family. So his 2 spiritual sons, their spiritual sons is Kasiti Garbha and Maitreya. Kasiti Garbha and Maitreya. And they are the perfection of cultivation and loving kindness. So I'm going to use an analogy here. I'm going to use a metaphor, a simile, to be able to help us to understand the function of these bodhisattvas. And the function is that it's like a gardener who has got a plot of land and wants to plant some seeds for some plants, for some flowers, for some fruit, for some vegetables, or something like that. So Kasiti Garbha is the bodhisattva who recognizes that this is all possible and that they are going to begin this cultivation process, that they have the seeds, they see that the land is good land, they see that it's going to get the proper sunlight that it needs, it's going to get the proper water that it needs, it has the proper nutrition in the soil and so on, and it's able to be accessed by the gardener to go in and make sure that it's weeded properly and taken care of. So Kasiti Garba represents this cultivation aspect, that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cultivate these seeds to become flowers, to become vegetables, to become fruit. So that is the function of Kasiti Garba. Maitreya, this is the Bodhisattva Maitreya. The Bodhisattva Maitreya represents loving kindness. And this loving kindness is a wisdom of knowing how to do this. Kasiti Garba has the motivation, has the intention. Maitreya has the skillful means and the wisdom to be able to make this happen. So between the two, you see, they're at the beginning phase of this cultivation, of this growingness, of becoming a perfect human being, because that's what these 8 great bodhisattvas represent, are the perfection of being a human being. So we're going to stay with the male, and then we'll come back to the female in a moment. So then we move to the next family, which is the yellow family. And here is the family of Ratnasambhava, and the mother is Mamaki. And their 2 sons are Akasa Garba and Samantabhadra. So Akasa Garba represents the perfection of transformation. And Samantabhadra, this is the Bodhisattva, Samantabhadra, represents devotion. So the transformation is that we're going to be able to take these seeds, and they're able to sprout and to be able to have the sprouts come up and break the ground, come into the air, and to be able to grow and so on like that. And they're going to transform into a living plant that is going to produce the flowers and the fruit and the vegetables that we enjoy so much. So this is the transformation in these terms. But for us as human beings, that we are going to be able to transform ourselves to become holy enlightened beings, that we are going to be able to become bodhisattvas ourselves and ultimately Buddhas. So Samantabhadra, the bodhisattva Samantabhadra, represents the devotion that we need to be able to manifest to allow this process to happen. So in the garden metaphor, the devotion to be able to come and regularly, every day maybe, come and water the plants, to make sure that the sunshine is coming properly, and to be able to weed and take out, things that may damage the plants or compromise them in some way. So to have devotion to this transformation, to allow this transformation to come. So we as human beings need to have that devotion for ourselves to be able to engage in this process of becoming a bodhisattva in order to become a Buddha. So this is in the yellow family. Then we go to the red family. And now this is the family of Amitabha and Pandara Vasini. And the 2 spiritual sons are Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara. So these are very well-known bodhisattvas, and many people may recognize these names. Manjushri is the perfection of wisdom, and his brother Avalokiteshvara is the bodhisattva, the perfection of compassion. So wisdom and compassion always go together. When we have wisdom, that we have these skillful means, the method to be able to actualize that wisdom. So that is the compassion. So Manjushri represents that wisdom. And it's a wisdom that is all pervasive. It is a wisdom that knows the practical things of this phenomenal existence that we live in, but also has the wisdom of the Dharmakaya, has the wisdom of the Buddha himself, or as the Buddha wisdom, that all the Buddhas have that wisdom and so on. And so he is the perfection of wisdom that represents that wisdom of the phenomenal and the wisdom of the absolute, or the ultimate wisdom. The compassion is the skillful means, is the ability to be able to actualize that wisdom, to be able to make it manifest. Avalokiteshvara sees all the suffering of beings and is able to offer them compassion and skillful means, method, to be able to overcome their suffering, whatever it is that is causing their suffering. He is able to do that. So in the analogy of the plants, we see that here is the wisdom of the plants that are coming. So now the sprouts of the plants have now broken the soil. They've come out into the atmosphere, and now they need to be pruned and so on, and being taken care of. And the compassion is making sure that they have the proper space in which to grow, that they have the proper water, and so on like that. So this is Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara. So then we go to the next, which is the green family, or the karma family. And this is the head of the family is Amagoga Siddhi, and his consort, the mother, is Samayatara. And their two spiritual sons are Vajrapani and Nivarana Vishkaben. I know that's quite a name, Nivarana Vishkaben. Vajrapani is the purification of Dharma power. And Nivarana Vishkaben is the purification, is the perfection of purification, the perfection of purification. So this power, this Dharma power that we realize that we're able to do allow the manifestation of the transformation to take place through the devotion, through the wisdom, through the skillful means, the compassion, and recognize this power that we're able to do this, to grow just from a seed, to be able to manifest this into a living plant that can give us nourishment and enjoyment. As a human being, it's showing that we can become transformed, that we have this power, that we as human beings can become holy human beings, sacred in the sense of being able to be able to have loving kindness and compassion for all beings. The perfection of the purification is Nivarana Vishkaben, that we are able to recognize those contaminations that we have within ourselves, with our body, speech, and mind, that have been preventing us from being able to manifest this power, to be able to make this transformation. So through this recognition of this purification, the causes of the purification, and then the application of the antidotes to those contaminations, are we able to purify ourselves to ultimately become the bodhisattvas, to ultimately become the Buddhas, the enlightened ones, and so on. So Vajrapani represents that power. Nivarana Vishkaben represents that purification. So as we get more familiar with these practices and we meditate on these deities, we begin to recognize how this manifests within ourselves. So we have to be able to look at the mother and father deities, the Buddha, the male and the female Buddhas that we talked about the last couple of weeks, and see what their what their manifestations are, and see that it's the bodhisattvas that are helping them, that are helping other beings who are on the path to become the Buddhas, to help them to recognize, to realize their full Buddha potential. So they work with the father and mother. So it's a family. They all work together. So we need to be able to contemplate how all this works. So now going back and talking about the female bodhisattvas. So now, in the beginning, here we are in the white family is Ascobia, Vajrasattva Ascobia, and the mother Lokana. And the two male are Kasiti Garba and Maitreya are the two male bodhisattvas. Now the sisters are Lasya and Pushpa. So Lasya is holding a mirror, and she represents, she's in the front. So you have to visualize this as a three-dimensional sphere. And as the male bodhisattvas are on the left and right, I didn't point that out before, but they are on the left and right of the central figure, the father and mother. So now Lasya is in the front here, and she is holding a mirror, and she represents the perfection of beauty. So this mirror is reflecting that beauty, and that beauty is the natural beauty of our nature, of our human nature, of this phenomenal nature, the beauty of samsara, the beauty of nirvana, the beauty of this whole process, to be able to recognize and abide in that beauty. Then the sister Pushpa is in the back, is behind the central figure, and she is holding a bouquet of flowers, and she represents that fruition of flowers, that beauty of flowers, that through this process of nurturing, planting the seeds, nurturing, cultivating, and so on, that these flowers come, and that here is something that we can share with each other. And they have a beautiful aroma, and there's many aspects to these flowers that are wonderful. So these are the two females in this family, the beauty and the flowers. And then the next would be Ratnasambhava and Mamaki in the center, Akasagarbha and Samantabhadra here. Samantabhadra is easily recognized because he's got a sword here. Now in the front is the female bodhisattva, Dupa. And, is in the front is Mala, like a mala. And she is holding the mala beads. You can see that she's holding a garland, a string of beads. And these beads represent skillful means, being able to accomplish that which you are accumulating. So we use the beads, we use the garland to be able to keep a record, to be able to keep our focus on our accomplishments, to keep our focus on our accumulations, our practice accumulations, and so on. So Dupa is here behind in the back, and she is holding a small little vase that is filled with incense. And the incense is a purification incense that is purifying the atmosphere to keep away any negativity, any confusion, any evil or anything negative or non-virtuous. So between Dupa and Mala, they're able to engage in practice and maintain practice without being contaminated by negativity or non-virtue that is being protected by the incense. So this is how Dupa and Mala work. Then the next is in the Amitabha Pandara family is Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara that we talked about. So Manjushri is on the left of the consort, the male and female. On their left, it's on our right, but on their left, and here is Avalokiteshvara on their right side, our left side. In front is Gita, and Gita represents the perfection of song. And behind is Aloka, is the perfection of light. So this song goes with Avalokiteshvara, this compassion, being able to compose these songs, to be able to write these songs, to be able to understand and be able to have the compassion to recognize the suffering that went to learn how to play the instrument and how to experience life and how to be able to put that into a poem or into a song, something like that. So she represents that ability of song as a means of compassion. Aloka represents light. She has a butter lamp, and she's holding a butter lamp, and she goes directly with Manjushri. Manjushri is holding the wisdom sword, the wisdom fire. And this wisdom is like light that illuminates the darkness. So the candle illuminates the darkness, illuminates the ignorance, and so on. So that light goes together with that wisdom, and the song goes together with the compassion. So you can see how these are all working together that way too. Then we go to the next family, the green family, Amagoga City and Samaya Terra, and we see that here is the two male is Vajrapani and Nivarana Vishkaben. And so here is the purification. This purification is identified by this book. If you look over here, you can see that in the hands of Nivarana Vishkaben, he has this book, and this is how we purify, through purifying our mind. So the book is important in being able to have the scriptures, being able to have the teachings, and then the practices to be able to purify and so on. So here, the power here is represented by a dorje, represented by the lightning bolt of Vajrapani. In front is here's Narte and Narte and Ganda. Just a moment. So Ganda is in front, and Ganda is holding food, and Narte excuse me. Ganda is in front and is holding food, and Narte in the back is, wait a minute, I got that mixed up. Sorry. Here is the food. This is in the back. This is Narte, and Ganda is in the front, and she represents dance. So the dance goes with the power, and the food goes with the purification of Nivarana Vishkaben. So the food is like a purification, that if we are eating properly and so on. And the dance is being able to have the dance of life, like as the power of Vajrapani. So these two are going together. So these are the brothers and sisters of this green family. So again, by looking at the mother and father aspect, and understanding what they represent, then understanding how the bodhisattvas, the male bodhisattvas and the female bodhisattvas, help them, is important for us to be able to recognize within ourselves, that we see this within ourselves, that is all the dance that is happening within ourselves. All this transformation is happening within ourselves. And we begin to have identification with these different deities. We begin to recognize these different deities as we are progressing along the path. We are doing practices and so on that are helping us to purify, to help us to recognize this. And we see ourselves as these different deities, that we are a collection of all these deities within our own heart center. So this was a short, quick review of these bodhisattva deities. And so I hope that helps. If anybody has any questions, please speak right up so we can talk about this. I hope that you were putting down their names and their reference points in the frames, the mandala frames, so you can look at this and study this. Many of us, to read a book and just have text, it's hard to imagine how all this fits together because all these lines of text and so on. But by creating a picture like this mandala with reference names in there and be able to make these associations, I think becomes very quicker, very, very fast. You can see the relationships of these different families and the way they work, all within ourselves. So does anybody have any questions or comments on this?
So Lance, with the female bodhisattvas, just stepping back, do they as a group represent different beauties and enjoyment of those beauties? So they are the beauties of the body, of nature, of dance, of food, but they also
they're like the actualizations. They're like the fruit, if you will. They're, it's temporary. It's not permanent. They are bodhisattvas, but so it helps us to be able to identify, the results of song. We talk about Avalokiteshvara, we talk about compassion, and to be able to recognize the song, to hear the music, directly connects with the idea of compassion because the two go together.
So in your gardening analogy, it's the fruition and the, if not enjoyment, just recognition of that fruition.
Yeah, and you could say the enjoyment. Yeah, it is, because all of this is the subtle enjoyment body. All this is the subtle enjoyment body, the Sambhogaya. And this is the perfect resource. The resource is like if you will, the library that we go to when we need to have resources to be able to learn things. We go to our library, whether it's in our home or it's down the street or whatever. But so these deities are like a resource to us, the perfect resource of what it is to be a holy enlightened being. So each in their own ways, they are identifying, they are symbolizing a particular aspect of what that is. So yes, so it is an enjoyment.
Thank you.
So Jerry, I'm curious. I'd like you to tell me, what do you think of this?
Okay. I'm very much interested in it, and I see where it's going, because I mean, without knowing what's coming up, I believe that we're going to learn how to meditate on all these philosophies that are carried by these bodhisattvas, and that's what I see. Learn how to meditate to improve ourselves so that we can be accepted into a higher state.
So that we can realize that ourselves, yes.
Yes, right. So, and that's what I'd like to know. I'd like to see how do we meditate? How do we think? How do we process this? And that's what's coming, I believe.
Well, yes, part of that, yes. And this is what we meditate on. This is what we meditate on. The actual process of meditation, in itself may not be described here in the Bardo Thodol. You know, the stages of meditation is something that is a system to be able to bring all this together in a programmed way, to be able to allow all this to come together and to manifest and so on. This is all the what. You know, there's a what. So this is all the what that we do in meditation. Then there is a why we are doing this. And that's also in this Bardo Thodol. We're learning why we do those things, why we have to purify and what it is that we're purifying and so on. Then the how comes from the Buddhism practices of shamatha meditation and vipassana meditation and so on like that. That's not taught in the Buddha and the Bardo Thodol. That is taught in other classes in the Buddhism 101, for instance, and many of the other teachers teach that. But what we're learning here is the what and the why. So I don't want to mislead you or let you be, confused in any way. That it's all part of the same process, but this is talking about specific what and why.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope that is good, and I hope it gives you incentive to want to learn how to meditate properly with these tools.
I meditate every day for at least an hour or more. So.
Oh, well, great. Okay, well then, excuse me.
I'm interested in learning how.
All right, well then, good.
Okay.
Well then, by sitting and contemplating this wheel, this mandala, in your meditation, is how we do that. So is your meditation, when you sit down to do meditation, is it a meditation? Well, explain to me your meditation.
Oh, well, I've been doing it for many years, and it's basically to go through a process of different levels within your consciousness, so that you relax, you let yourself go, you remove all thoughts from your mind, or you might want to think about something in particular and put your attention to it. But there's different levels, and there's different, there's not just one way to meditate. You don't understand that. So, I mean, it could take many, to explain it, there's more to it than this simple explanation. But to meditate about a problem, one problem, just one, and put everything else out of your mind, that would take the samara and take it out of your mind and just meditate about the one thing, and you will get an answer, whether it be intuition or your subconscious or your brain bringing it forward, or you get information from the other side in many ways. And it ain't perfect every time, but it is a wonderful state to learn.
So do you think that what we're doing here and building this mandala would be helpful in your meditation?
Yes, because I think what I'm going to do is end up spending time on all these different, I can't find the word for it, but I mean, the perfection, to seek out perfection in your consciousness and in your subconsciousness, and to prepare you for death and for meeting our higher spirits and continuing life after death.
Okay, great. That's very good. Thank you very much. Yes, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So that's really good. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Lance, so I'm remembering what you said last week that was so helpful, that we see ourselves first as Vajrasattva, and then Vajrasattva appears as each of the 5 Buddhas. And so now we're going the next step with Vajrasattva appearing as each of the male and female bodhisattvas.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I lost that last sentence.
I'm just picking up from where what you had said last week, that we first see ourselves
Yeah, I
as
got-
Vajrasattva, and then Vajrasattva appears as each of the 5 Buddhas, kind of manifesting. And so now it's another level, quite literally in the 3-dimensional mandala, of Vajrasattva manifesting now as the perfections represented by the bodhisattvas, male and female. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, that we're seeing this family through the eyes of Vajrasattva.
Uh-huh.
We're seeing the mother and the father, so to speak. We're seeing the brothers and we're seeing the sisters, so to speak. So we're seeing how they work together as a family,
Mhm.
and that the different families have different aspects. And we talked about that they each have a particular enlightened activity that we talked about the last couple of weeks and so on, and how it is they all work together for that particular activity.
Mhm.
So it requires, a contemplation, a pointed contemplation that becomes a meditation. In other words, we're thinking about how does all this work? How all these players come together and so on. And then we get to a point where we just kind of rest.
Mhm.
And then we have that meditational experience of becoming that.
Mhm.
Of no thought, we just become that. We get beyond the idea that we have to see this as a material thing or something like that. It becomes an experience that we have within ourselves.
Mhm.
When we have that kind of an experience, that's the rigpa, that's the awareness, that's the epiphany that we're looking for, and to be able to do that with each family like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yes, so it's the purification of Vajrasattva that allows us to do that. We couldn't do that if we were waiting or we were expecting the police to come to our door at any moment because we did something bad.
Mhm.
But we wouldn't be able to do that if we were waiting for a phone call to come. Or if, we had other things on our mind that were distracting us. So that's why it's important to be able to get a controlled environment, to be able to allow ourselves to have plenty of time to be able to bring this all together and so on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good reminder. This is a Dzogchen teaching, so ultimately we have to drop it all.
Yes, Louisa.
Get that on. Lance, I think what it's helping me see the way that you explained it now, it's helping me to be more open in my meditation. And when you meditate, this is how I'm thinking about it and how I can use it in my meditation. When you're thinking about compassion and love and perfection and purification, that means within our hearts. And contemplating on that and making it an experience that you have in your heart, and then you start to become this. You start to become compassion. You start to become more loving, and you start to become wanting to be more, your heart to be more pure. Is that kind of how I should be looking at it?
Yes, but
I
it's
mean,
not.
that's
It's
how
not.
I'm looking.
Yes, but it's not just
Yeah.
the heart. It's the body, the speech, and the mind.
Yes.
That
Yes.
we have our body, we have our speech, and we have our mind. That we're purifying all 3 of those things. That we can't purify our heart if our body is corrupted in some way. Or if
Right, okay.
we're going out and saying negative things, we're doing bad things, but meanwhile we're trying to develop the heart. It doesn't work that way. It's going to contaminate the heart. So we have to, do all 3. It's our body, speech, and mind. So that's what the 100-syllable mantra is reminding us of, that it's our body, speech, and mind that we're purifying.
Mm-hmm.
And we say,
Okay.
Om Ahong, to become the body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas, of the enlightened ones. Yes.
Right.
So it's all 3 things.
Okay. It's in totality. that brings it all together, your heart, your body, speech, and mind.
Yeah. I look at it as it's holistic,
Yes.
you know?
And then your focus is to become those compassion, love, all of that, and
Yes.
in your body, speech, and mind, and your heart too.
Well, and your mind is in your heart. It's the
Yeah.
heart mind. It's the heart mind.
Mhm.
This is the brain
Okay.
mind. This is where our intellect is, but this is the heart mind. This is where our spirituality is.
Yes. Yes. Got it.
And then
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
and then the body is like the palace, where all this is taking place, so we have to, and that was one of the lessons that the Buddha realized, was that I've got this body and I got to be able to protect this body, cultivate this body, and not, suppress this body in any way. I have to look at this
Right.
body as the body of the Buddha, the body of truth, the body of enlightenment.
Okay. Yeah, and I've read where your body is your castle, like a castle or a palace,
Exactly.
and you have all these rooms in there, and there's always work progressing and going on. Some doors you have to open and find out what's in there because you haven't really looked in there for a very long time, and there may be some work you need to do in those rooms, or in the
Absolutely.
hallway, or in the attic,
Right.
in the basement, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Those are other tantric practices
Yeah.
that allow us to be able to manifest this, which is the why we want to do all that. Why do we want to do all that? We want to do all that because of the Bardo Thodol.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And then say, okay, so because I want to do that, now I need to do these other things too, these other tantric practices and so on, and the sutric practices too. Yes, Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah, I just
Got
wanted
it.
to bring out that, in some of the psychology books that I read, they say there's about maybe 80 or 90 different types of emotions and feelings and things you can do right, and that bring anger and hate and fear into your life. Now, when this Tibetan Book of the Dead was written, there was no 90 back then. So, in a sense, is there something missing? Because, I mean, like I said, I could send you a list of all these emotions and feelings and everything that the psychiatrist needs to work with people on to help them understand it and to remove it from their life. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's in contemporary psychology.
That's right. So I'm just saying, how do you cover all those 90 when only about 10 or 15 are covered in what you've taught us so far?
Well, that's a really good question. And that's a question that we talk about a lot in our Buddhism 101 investigations. And the Buddha taught 84,000 antidotes to 84,000 emotions.
Okay. I guess I was too low.
But what we're able to do, what the masters have been able to do, is to be able to reduce that to 5 poisons. There are 5 basic poisons that make up all these 84,000 different emotions. And it's all these different combinations of these 5 poisons, 5% of this, 20% of that, it may not be quite that literal, but, as human beings, we're always trying to hold on to those kinds of images. So the point is that when we know the 5 basic poisons of ignorance or delusion, of desire or attachment, of hatred or anger, of jealousy or envy, and of greed or pride, when we know those 5 things, then we can start recognizing, if we take the time to contemplate what those things, what's happening within ourselves, be able to see those things manifesting, and then be able to apply the antidotes. And the antidotes are here. You know, we gave those last week. They should be in the chart that you were writing down. So those antidotes should be there. So so we just look at it in terms of combinations. It's not all just one thing. It's a combination of things. Like we said, Louisa and I just said, it's a holistic experience. It's very dynamic. Everything's, you know, interacting with everything else. What we're trying to do is to simplify and get to the least common denominator of all these things, which is love. We call love.
Guidance. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Good answer.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment or question?
I have a question, Liz.
Yes, sir.
What is the ultimate thing that you're measuring up your practice against to know that you purified yourself to the next level? Is it the practice itself, or do we have to like go out into the world and be like, okay, you know, there are certain situations that are coming up in your life, and then you realize that, whoa, hold on a second, I have a different level of anger that I was not aware of. So is it the practice, or is it the real word, or is it a combination of both?
Yes, it is a combination of both. And if you remember, you know, early on in our talk about Bardo Thodol, we talked about the that it's the peaceful deities that are in the heart center, working on the heart mind, working on these 5 poisons and so on, and purifying these 5 poisons that make up the 84,000 emotions and so on. And then there's the intellect. This is where the Sambhogagaya deities are, up in the brain, and the intellectualization of all these different things that are happening that precipitate as these poisons, that precipitate as these emotions and so on. So they're in the brain. It's an intellectual process and so on. How do we recognize whether we are speaking, whether we are actualizing from the heart, or are we actualizing from the brain? Is through our speech. And this is the habitual tendencies. When we are listening to ourselves, listening to what it is that we say, and not just what we say, but what we do. So this is a way in which we are actualizing, you know, in society and so on. If we stay in the cave, if we stay in the hermitage, there's nothing for us to reveal, you know, what's going on within ourselves. And we may think that we're perfected, but as soon as we go outside, then we're confronted with a certain situation and find out that we're nowhere near as perfected as we thought we were. So we need to be tested over and over and over again. And it's through our habitual tendencies that we begin to reveal what it is that, where our level of purity is, where our level of purification is. And we have to be honest with ourselves and say, oh, I need more work. And never to feel so comfortable that to have that arrogance to say, oh, I'm done. You know, we'll let the work speak for itself. So it's a combination of both of those things that you just said, that is through the speech and through our actions.
That is funny you said that, Lance, because I just had something like that happening last week. I'm not going to go into that, but just what you said right now. Yeah, thanks for clarifying on that. And but as long as like our awareness remains like capable of identifying that speech element and just look at itself like in a mirror and be able to say, well, yeah, these are the things that I need to work on. That should put us on the path, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we need brothers and sisters. That's why we need teachers. That's why we need Sangha, because we get, blindsided, we get tunnel vision, and we need to have our brothers and sisters and our teachers to kind of remind us, to give us a clue, to give us a kick in the pants, whatever it is, or a pat on the back to say, oh, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing. So we need to have Sangha. It's very important. It's I won't say it's totally indispensable, but for most of us, it is totally indispensable. We need to have it. Otherwise, we develop our self-perpetuating arrogance, our ego.
I completely agree. Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome. Okay.
Lance, why are there no bodhisattvas for the Buddha family?
I don't have a good answer for that.
It's almost like I'd understand better if there weren't any for the karma family. At the end, the all-accomplishing wisdom, they kind of have moved beyond the last level. But that makes me think I'll go dig into that more, see if I can find anything for us.
Okay, well, that's fine, but I'm grateful for the ones that we have. So I look at it this way. Now, if we put it all together, I haven't done that yet, but let me put it all together right now. So if we look at the gardener analogy, once again, with these 8 great bodhisattvas, so you've got the bodhisattva that has the motivation, the intention to want to do this cultivation. You have the bodhisattva, you have this aspect within you that has the wisdom of knowing how to do this. You've got the initial urge to want to do this, and some degree of knowledge as to how to do this. And then you have this devotion to be able to want to see this through, to continue to do this, to bring about the transformation that you're looking for. You're looking for a transformation, so you've got that devotion to be able to do that. And then what begins to come, you begin to develop this wisdom, this all-abiding wisdom, this all-pervading wisdom, and this skillful means to be able to see this is the fruit, this is the fruition of how this all, of what all this was all about, what this is doing, and so on. And then we recognize the power that we have, that we were able to do this. And we're able to use that power in many different places that we can focus. And that the key is to be able to purify. The power needs to be focused on purifying, and then the naturalness of all this, the naturalness that we are naturally pure. We are naturally Buddha. We are naturally enlightened, but it's all the junk that's on top of it that prevents us from being able to live that. So the purification is not doing anything with that naturalness. It's taking away, it's getting rid of all those obscurations. It's purifying all those things. Then the naturalness of the enlightenment of the Buddha nature is already there. So these 8 great bodhisattvas and the female 8 great bodhisattvas help us to recognize that. These are the levels, these are the activities of being a human being. Being a human being. Remember, all this is all a story about being a human being and becoming a perfect human being to the point of becoming what we now call a Buddha, which is enlightened, which does not have attachments, does not have aversions, does not have jealousies, that is pure. And everything that being does is for the benefit of others. No selfishness. Okay. So now, to put it back in context with the Bardo Thodol, we've died. We had the opportunity to go to the clear light, to Samantabhadra, Buddha Samantabhadra, but we weren't ready for that. So then we go into the Bardo of reality, where we see these 5 Buddha families. These 5 Buddha families are manifesting, their lights are being, are everywhere. It's all within ourselves. They're there now. It's everywhere. What we're trying to do is to recognize that. So is in our living Bardo, we can do that now, so that when we go into that Bardo of reality, after we die, when we don't have a physical body anymore, we don't have an intellectual brain anymore, all we are is pure spirit, we can recognize that white light, that blue light, that green light, that yellow light, and the red light, and recognize that they are our meditational deities without any thought about it. There's no intellectual thought because there's no brain. It's a spiritual experience. So if we've gone to any one of those, we can become Buddha Amitabha. We can become Buddha Amagog City, or Buddha, Ascobia, or Ratnasambhava, or Varanchana. So we'll just be there, but for the rest of us, now we've had this opportunity for day 1, for day 2, for day 3, for day 4, for day 5. For us, we're defining these days. For the being that's in this Bardo experience right now, time means nothing. But we need a way to be able to organize this so that we can develop this awareness. So now we come to day 6. What happens if we haven't gone to day 6? And what we're beginning to do is we're beginning to fall away. We're beginning to fall away further from enlightenment. We're falling away to become born again, to become some other being now again, to be reborn. But we're still now in this Bardo, so we come to day 6. So we're not going to get through this tonight, of course, but we're going to start. And so I'm going to read a little bit and I'm going to talk a little bit. So if anybody has questions, we can talk about it right away. So if you go to page 103 in the book. Okay, and then you can follow me. Everybody ready? O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. Listen without distraction. Until yesterday, the visions of the 5 individual enlightened families arose before you. Despite this, even though the former introduction was given, you experienced awe and terror, a response generated by your habitual tendencies. Didn't I just talk about that 5 minutes ago? Consequently, you have remained in your present state until now. If you had previously recognized one of the natural luminosities of the pristine cognitions, the pure light, the red pure light, the yellow pure light, the white pure light, etc. If you had recognized one of those natural luminosities of the pristine cognitions of the 5 enlightened families as being a natural manifestation of actual reality, which we are part of right now. We're in reality now. But, it's covered up with all kinds of obscurations and confusions and so on. We don't see it as reality, or we see it as a false reality. Natural manifestations of actual reality, you would have dissolved into rainbow light at the heart of one of those Buddha bodies of the 5 respective enlightened families and attained Buddhahood in the Buddha body of perfect resource. So the perfect resource is the Sambhogaya deities, the meditational deities. And then that would have just taken you like water being poured into water, you would have gone right into the Dharmakaya. So now next paragraph, it says, yet since you have been unable to recognize these experiences as being natural manifestations, you have wandered here. Day 6. Therefore, listen now without distraction. The vision of the entire peaceful assembly of the five enlightened families, together with that which is called the vision of the four pristine cognitions combined, will now come to invite you, recognize this. So let's go back over that sentence. Yet, since you have been unable to recognize these appearances as being natural manifestations, you have wandered here. Therefore, listen now without distraction. The vision of the entire peaceful assembly of the five enlightened families, together with that which is called the vision of the four pristine cognitions combined, will now come to invite you. Recognize this. So what that means is that whole mandala wheel, that all those lights just all are coming together, this clear light, this all this coming together, which is called the vision of the four pristine cognitions combined, will now come to invite you. Recognize this. So there's only 4, but there's 5. There's 4. There's talking about 4 here, but there's only 5. What we're going to find out, the 5th one is Amagog City, the green light, which is accomplishment. And at this point, we haven't accomplished it. So that light is not going to dawn on you. So we have the other 4 lights to deal with: the blue light, the white light, the yellow light, and the red light. So now, the next paragraph. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. At this time, the 4 colored lights, which are the 4 forms of the 4 elements, will dawn before you, and simultaneously, the Buddha Varanchana and his consort will arise as before from the central Buddha field of the pervasive seminal point, i.e. the Ankanista Ganyu Vyuha. At that same moment, so what that's saying is, let me read it again. At this time, the 4 colored lights, which are the 4 forms of the 4 elements, will dawn before you, and simultaneously, the Buddha Varanchana and his consort will arise as before from the central Buddha field of the pervasive seminal point. So what this is Samantabhadra's brilliance, this clear light, is there, but we haven't recognized it. It will come up again. If we have an opportunity to recognize it, we will go to it. But if not, we continue on. It says at that same moment, the Buddha Vajrasattva Ascobia and his consort, surrounded by their retinue, will arise from the eastern Buddha field of manifest joy, Abharati. The Buddha Ratnasambhava and his consort, together with their retinue, will arise from the southern Buddha field, glorious Shamat. The Buddha Amitabha and his consort, together with their retinue, will arise in the western Buddha field in the blissful Sukhavati. And the Buddha Amagoga City and his consort, together with their retinue, will now arise before you from the northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activities, such as the Karma Prad City, all rising together out of the space of rainbow light. So all this is all coming together. And it says that all this comes out of the natural elements, the elements of fire, the element of water, the element of wind, the element of earth, form. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. Encircling these male and female deities of the 5 enlightened families, the male gatekeepers, Trilokya Vijaya, Yamantaka, Hayagriva Raja, and Amrikunda Kundalin will also arise together with their female gatekeepers, and Kusa, Pasa, Spota, and Ganta. In addition, the 6 emanational sages, who are transcendent lords, will also appear before you. Indrasaka, who is the sage of the gods, Brahmasitra, who is the sage of the anti-gods, Shakyamuni, who is the sage of humans, Simha, who is the sage of animals, Zvalamukha, who is the sage of the anguish spirits, and Dharmaraja, who is the sage of the hell beings. Accompanying the above array, Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri will also arise before you in the form called Samantabhadra and consort in the union, the coalescence, which is the progenitor of all the Buddhas. I'm going to continue this. These 42 assembled deities of the Buddha body of perfect resource will emanate from within your heart and then appear before you. Recognize them, for they have arisen from within your own pure vision. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kuntrukpema Dorje, these Buddha fields do not exist extraneously. They are the 5 aspects of your own heart, its 4 directions and center. Emanating now from within your own heart, they have arisen before you. These Buddha bodies have not arisen extraneously. They have spontaneously arisen, atemporally, from the natural expressive power of your own awareness. Therefore, recognize them as they are. So now we're going to go back and examine this a little bit more, give more understanding. I think I got to make one correction. I said about the 4 and the 5, and I think what's the 4 are the water, the earth, the fire, and the air. So the water would be the white in this case. The yellow would be the earth element. The red would be the fire element, and the wind, the green, would be the green element. So those are the 4 elements. The one that's not apparent to us is the space, the blue in this case. So we'll get to the part about the green a little bit later on. So sorry if I said the wrong thing. Okay, so now I'm on page 104. It says, O child of Buddha nature, at this time, the 4 colored lights, which are the 4 forms of the 4 elements, will dawn before you. So those are the white, the yellow, the red, and the green. Simultaneously, the Buddha Varanchana and his consort will arise from the central Buddha field, a pervasive seminal point. So that's what's coming from the center, but that's the space element, and we're not recognizing that. At that moment, the Buddha Vajrasattva Ascobia and his consort arise from Eastern. So I went on, so we talked about that. I don't have to repeat that. And then there are different Buddha fields. So each one of those Buddha families has their own Buddha field. So that's where it's identified. That's where it's elaborated. So then, now I'm on page 105. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kontukpema Dorje, encircling these male and female deities of the 5 enlightened families, the male gatekeepers, Trailokya Vijaya, Yamantaka, Hayagriva Raja, and Amrita Kundalin will also arise together with their female gatekeepers and Kusa, Pasa, Spota, and Ganta. Okay, so let's just focus on these. So going back to our, going back to the mandala frames. Okay, so now looking at the frame, at the very bottom, I'm going to turn on the screen share for a moment. Okay, so now each one of these, you see this little step here? This is a gate. This is a gate to get into the heart center. This is the eastern gate. This is the southern gate to get into this part of the family. This is the red gate to get in the west, to get in here. This was the south. This is the west, the red, and this is the north to get into the northern part here. So these gatekeepers are just like you would expect. They are there as a to either keep beings from exiting or to keep beings from entering. The only beings that we would want to keep from entering would be the beings that are non-virtuous. They would have to earn their ability to be able to get there. We would want to, from the other side, we would not want beings to exit, to get out of here, if they can stay within here. They can stay within these 5 Buddha families, within this bardo of reality here, because to go out of this means to leave the heart center. So these gatekeepers are there to help beings to stay here, to remind them why they are there, if they can. So now I'm going to go back. Okay. So now we go to, in the east, the gatekeeper there is Trailokia. This is the emanation gatekeeper, an emanation gatekeeper. So let me turn this back on here and go. Now, I know this is where things start getting a little bit more in depth. So here is the gatekeeper, Trailokia Vijaya, who is the natural purity of eternalism view and pacification aspect. His consort, White Dakini Ankusa, is the natural purity of miraculous birth and compassion aspiration. So let me put this into context now. You should write this down. The 4 male gatekeepers represent the natural purity of the 4 extreme views. They represent the natural purity of the 4 extreme views and the 4 aspects of enlightened activity. So I think the enlightened activity, I think we talked about before, maybe not. All right, so let's look at that. So the 4 extreme views are, if you look at it as a opposites. So we have eternalism as one extreme view on one side. And then opposite that is nihilism. And then 90 degrees from those 2 opposites is materialism. And the opposite of that is individualism. So I'm going to come back so I can look at everybody. Okay, so eternalism on one side, nihilism on the other. Materialism on one side, individualism on the other side. So where we want to be is in the middle of all this. These are the extreme views of human beings. Eternalism, thinking that things will go on forever, everything's going to be okay. We're all going to go to meet the supreme being or whatever, and everything's going to be forgiven, everything's going to be fine. Eternalism, everything goes on. There's nothing we have to do. Everything's going to be fine, being taken care of by somebody else. Nihilism, on the other side, is nothing means anything to anybody. There ain't no help. There is nothing there. It's just empty, nothing there for us. It's all just chaos. What we are experiencing is just chaos. And we're trying to make the best of our chaos. And eternalism is saying, oh, there's a big plan and all this, and you've got your own plan. Everybody's got their own plan and so on. But between the two, there's a degree of understanding, from understanding nihilism and eternalism, and saying, well, there's something in between. And we need to understand that between. To put it in a sharper focus, there's the materialism, and then on the other side is the individualism. So the materialism is everything is here for our benefit. And the winner is the one with the most toys. Materialism, that we are materialistic beings, and it's all there for our benefit. Individualism is, I'm the only one that matters. It doesn't matter where I am, who I am, what I'm doing. I'm the only one that matters. As long as I'm happy, long as I'm satisfied, long as I get what I want, that's all that matters. Another word for it is egoism. Just me. So there's egoism on one side, there's materialism on the other side. That materialism sometimes can be, the word substantialism can be used. Substantialism, that all this stuff is substantial, all this stuff is real, all this stuff is existent. The only thing, and in individualism, the only thing that exists is me. So you can see that there's a trap on both of those sides. These are extreme views. And there are many people that live in these extreme views. You probably know some of them. You probably have experienced those views yourself. You may still experience some of those views. So where we need to come is to recognize that this is part of the human experience. Nihilism is part of the human experience. Eternalism is part of the human experience. Egoism is part of the human experience. Materialism is part of the human experience. And where you want to be is in the center of that. This was, the fundamental teaching of the Buddha Shakyamuni in the middle way. And saying, it's okay to be a human being. It's good to be a human being. It's a gift to be a human being. And we shouldn't look at it that we should be punishing ourselves by going off into a cave and starving ourselves to death in order to attain enlightenment. No, it's the experience of going and spending times of austerity, no question about it, but to come out of that and to bring it down into the village, to bring it down into society, to, number one, help other beings to understand what it is that you are doing. And number two, to help yourself to purify, to see what it is that still needs work, to see where your wrong views are, to see where your confusions are, and so on. So it's in that middle way, it's in that Mahayana, that great middle way, in which we want to be able to be a complete human being. It's where we become a complete human being. It's where we recognize the physical body, we recognize the intellectual body, and we recognize the spiritual body as all being part of the realized being, the complete human being. So, the four male gatekeepers represent the natural purity of the four extreme views. And then it says the four aspects of enlightened activity. The 4 aspects of enlightened activity. So what are the aspects of enlightened activity? The enlightened activity are what the Buddha families, these 4 Buddha families have perfected. So in the white family, they have perfected the enlightened activity of pacification. Pacification. This is how they can overcome hatred. So if you remember the poison, or how do I express it? Excuse me. The emotion of the white family that it overcomes is hatred. So it overcomes that hatred through pacification. We try and pacify that hatred, that aggression. We try that. We try to make that work. And many times that'll work. So then we go to the yellow family, and the yellow family is the enlightened activity is increasing or enrichment. In other words, it's gathering more information, it's gathering more stuff in order to be able to purify. So if pacification doesn't work, say, oh, everything's okay, you shouldn't get upset, blah, 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 but that doesn't work. So then we say, okay, here's why it doesn't work. Here's what your hatred is. Here's what your problem is. And here's the antidote for it and everything. Let me educate you. Let me enrich you. Let me increase your understanding of this. So enriching or increasing is the second enlightened activity. And that's in the earth family, that's Ratnasambhava. Then the enlightened family in the red family, the Amitabha family, the family of the Padma family, is magnetizing. That what you're trying to do is you're trying to draw in that which is so negative, so confused, that passion, that attachment, that desire, you're trying to magnetize it to come in so that it can be subdued, so that you can get a handle on it, so it's not becoming obsessive and blowing up more than it has to. So if it can't be subdued through pacification, if it can't be subdued through enriching, can it be subdued by magnetism, by bringing it in, and through analytical investigation, can it by its own volition recognize the mistake, recognize the error, and be able to become quiet, become pacified, and so on. But if that doesn't work, and it's still really very deep, then we go to the green family, we go to Amagog City, and this is where we challenge, where we maximize our focus in order that we can, excuse me one second, that we can purify by digging it out. We have to go and we have to pull it out. We have to do more work. We have to challenge. We have to go in. The other ones were just like pacification, enriching, magnetizing. Now we have to really dig it out. So it's a much more active process to be able to do that. They sometimes call it the wrathful process. It's a wrathful process, not that it's hateful. The word wrathful sometimes has a hateful connotation to it. It's not that. It's because of the great love and compassion that is trying to dig this out. So we're challenging. I like to think of it as challenging, that we're challenging that which we think is the problem, to bring it out, to find the cause to it and everything. So these 4 enlightened activities then: pacification, enriching, magnetizing, and challenging, are the 4 activities of these 4 Buddha families. So these gatekeepers are there to be able to help the beings who are falling away from this, to be able to say, hey, do you know what it is that we do here? Do you recognize what's going on here? Do you really want to leave? Let me close this door. Let me keep this gate closed so that you have more chance to be able to go back, or to recognize those lights, to recognize those families, and to become enlightened in this Bardo space here, in this 6th day. Let me close this gate for you. In addition to that are the 4 female gatekeepers. They're in union with each other. So you can see, one of the pictures here on either side. I know it's a small picture, it's hard to see. I can show it to you on the screen in a minute, but they're working together. These male and females are working together, and you can see that they are wrathful. They got this fire areola all around them and so on, and they're in this powerful position, that is very forceful and so on. And they're really trying to save us. Do you really want me to open this door? I want to keep this door closed. I want you to become enlightened. So the 4 females now are representing the natural purity of the 4 types of birth and the 4 immeasurable aspirations. So the 4 types of birth is the womb birth, that all mammals are born by way of the womb. And then there is the egg birth, that all the fowl, the birds and so on, are born of the egg. Reptiles are born of the egg. And then there is the heat and moisture birth. This is the larvae. This is the insects that are born of the larvae. And then there is the miraculous birth. The miraculous birth has a it's just like it sounds. It has a something that we would enjoy and something that we may not enjoy. But in either case, it's miraculous. How does this happen? It's beyond our comprehension, but yet we can be born a miraculous birth. So now I'll dig a little deeper. With the womb birth, we know that that's the way of the mammals. We are born of the womb and so on like that. So that one's fairly easy. And we would want to have, if we had to have a birth, we would want to have a womb birth, because there we can be a human being, and we would want to be born a human being. If we had the choice of being born as a human being, as a mammal, or being born as a bird, or being born as an insect, or being born in this miraculous way that may transport us to being born into the hell realms. How do we get into these hell realms, or these hungry ghost realms, to these lower realms? How do we get there and so on? Through these miraculous births. So we would want not to be born in that way. We would want to be born as a human being. This is the best birth that we can have. So the bird birth, the egg birth, is something we would not want to do. The insect birth, of course, we wouldn't want to do. This miraculous birth, like I said, we can go, if you are a god, for instance, if you're in the God realm, and we've talked about the 6 realms of a human being, and we're in this Deva God realm, and then when we die from the God realm, because of the things that we have not done, that we had the power to do, we had the ability to recognize, but we did not do, we indirectly caused great suffering by many people. We are miraculously born into the lower realms, born into, namely, the hell realm, because indirectly we have caused so many sufferings of death and so on, terrible death, when we were being beseeched, to intervene, to stop these wars or stop these famines or stop these terrible catastrophes from happening and so on. So in that way, there's a responsibility there, and we're miraculously born into the lower realms. There's also the miraculous birth of being born, as we say, on the pistil of a lotus. And we talk about great beings like Padmasambhava, who is the composer of the Bardo Thodol, who is born on the pistil of a lotus. And this pistil of a lotus, this is an analogy of the womb birth, but this is at a very high level. The lotus is also many times called the greatest or the most sublime of the womb birth, the lotus, to be born of the lotus. So that womb birth is sometimes, but is referred to as these higher spiritual beings, but human beings. So Padmasambhava being an example of that, or Shakyamuni Buddha being like that. So many other beings having a miraculous lotus birth like that. So the only way that we can manage that is through our karma. And we'll have to talk about that. But to have the karma to be born in that way, have the karma to be born that way, we had to be great bodhisattva. We had to have perfected the ways of the bodhisattva to be able to do that, and maybe have the final vestiges of purification that had to be enacted in order to get to the next level of becoming a Buddha. So by being born in the lotus birth like that enables us automatically, already, we're born in this very high level. So those are the 4 types of birth. Then it's also the 4 female gatekeepers also represent the 4 immeasurable aspirations. The 4 immeasurable aspirations. So these 4 immeasurable aspirations are the 4 immeasurable qualities of bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is the wholly enlightened mind of all the enlightened ones. So the 4 immeasurable qualities are loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. So these aspirations are for those 4 qualities, for bodhicitta. So the female gatekeeper represents that. So if we are born, or excuse me, if we are now in this bardo of reality, and we haven't, the first 5 days, we haven't recognized those lights, or we haven't been able to have the courage or the power to be able to become those lights, and we're now slipping away, we come to these gates, and now these gatekeepers are saying, do you really want to go? Let me help you. Let me show you, let me remind you of these 4 qualities, of the 4 extreme views, of the 4 aspects of enlightened activity, of the 4 types of birth, and the 4 immeasurable aspirations. So all this is happening within ourselves. We're not literally meeting these beings. This is all within ourselves. So for us to be able to recognize that means that we had to develop our awareness of these things in this lifetime, in this bardo of living. So here we're meeting ourselves, saying, do you really want to slip away from this bardo experience of becoming enlightened? So it's holding us there. And then we can say, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Oh, now I remember. Yes, I want to go to Ascobia. Oh yes, I want to go to the Amitabha. I want to go to Amagog City, whatever. Or I want to, yes, I can go to Samantabhadra. Maybe I'm not pure. I just had this moment of doubt or something like that. So instead of cowering away, now all of a sudden we become that light. We become that being. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, I think I lost track about where these bouncers are on our map.
Okay, I'm going to get to that right now. All right, so now I'm
Okay.
getting to that right now. So first I gave the overview of what they represent. So in the East, the first one is Trailokya and Kusa. So now I'm going to turn on the screen share again. So here's Trailokya and Vijaya. So here is the purity of the eternalism view and the pacification aspect. And then the white Dakini and Kusa is the purity of the miraculous birth and compassion aspiration. So you have to fit that into what I just said, what I was talking about before. So you see that these are human beings, and he's wearing a tiger skin, and they're standing on this sun disk. The sun disk is wisdom, and he's in this dancing posture to represent his activity. And he's got this wisdom fire that surrounds him, and he's a wisdom being. He's got the round eyes, and he's got the third eye here. So there's lots of symbolism here. So this is the gatekeeper Trailokya. And then the next one is Yamantaka, who is in the yellow family, in the Ratna family. And he's the natural purity of nihilistic view and the enrichment aspect. And his consort is yellow Dakini Pasa, who is the natural purity of the womb birth and loving kindness and aspiration. The loving kindness aspiration. So same thing, he's in the dancing posture, he's wearing the tiger skin. The tiger skin represents courage, great courage. The tiger is a very courageous animal. So he represents that courage, got the wisdom fire. That's Yamantaka. And by the way, this southern direction is the location of being a human being. So that's why this nihilism, that's why this enrichment aspect, that's why this womb birth, and that's why this loving kindness, because of the human being aspect here. Then the next one is Hayagriva Raja and Red Dakini Spota. Hayagriva Raja is the natural purity of egoism, individualism, and the magnetizing aspect. And Red Dakini Spota is the natural purity of egg birth and the empathetic joy aspiration of bodhicitta. So once again, he's got the tiger skin skirt, he's dancing on the wisdom disc, and got the three eyes. These skulls, this tiara that all these gatekeepers are wearing, that tiara represents the 5 Buddha families. So that they are masters of the wisdom and the skillful means of the 5 Buddha families and the wisdom fire. So Hayagriva Raja. The word Raja, R-A-J-A, Raja, means king. So Hayagriva Raja. So Hayagriva is cutting through. Cutting through. There's a lot that we can talk about each one of these things. So I'm not gonna get too caught up in all these minute details at this point, but you can look a lot of these things up and you'll learn a lot. All this bears individual contemplation and individual investigation. Then the next one is the gatekeeper is Amrita Kundalin, and his consort is Green Dakini Ganta. And he is the natural purity of substantialism, materialism, and subjugation aspect, where the what I was saying was the challenging, the wrathful aspect, the subjugation, the actual going in and digging and putting your arms around and holding them down, subjugating them. And then the green Tara, the green Dakini, is the natural purity of heat and moisture birth and the equanimity aspiration. So these are those gatekeepers that are trying to hold us in the Bardo in order to, in the Bardo of reality. Whoops, I didn't mean that, sorry. So that we can, another opportunity to become enlightened. We have all this opportunity to become enlightened. So here we are in the 6th day, and there's still opportunity to become enlightened, to remain as a Buddha. So I think that's all we got time for tonight. So anybody got questions or comments?
I do.
Okay.
The Dakini Guardians all seem to they represent a different sort of birth, right? Does that mean that as the gatekeeper, if you get by the gatekeepers and you're stupid enough to be like la 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 and just kind of wander out, that's the kind of birth you might encounter?
Yes, you could, but there's more stuff after that. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. But here it's reminding you of the type of birth that you could have in order that you have your self-motivation to become liberated in that Bardo. Say, oh, I don't want to go there. Oh, I had forgotten about that. I don't want to go there. Yeah, let me go back and remember my teachings as a human being, and let me liberate myself now.
Okay, it's like would you want to be born a marsupial, or would you want to be born a snake, or so that the Dakini is sort of representing that kind of birth that we want to avoid?
Well, it's representing the purification of that.
Oh,
the natural purity of that. Now, I got to remind you all that this is in the book. All this comes from the book. This is in the index of the book, in the appendices. That all this, you can study this. So what I've been able to do is take this out and give you some facts here, some stuff from the book. But the way I learned this was through my individual study and contemplation of this and meditation on this. And the invitation is here for you to do the same thing. You can't escape the responsibility for your own awareness. Yes, Jane.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. So our goal is to take all the different aspects from all the different Buddha families, to incorporate it to become this whole being on the path to enlightenment, to Buddhahood. But the gatekeepers are blocking our paths. Is that?
They're blocking our path to go lower.
Oh, okay.
To leave this Bardo of reality, this Bardo of the peaceful deities.
Okay.
Because when we go through that gate, we go into another part of the Bardo experience that is more difficult to get back to the peaceful. Here, we're already in the peaceful. If we can stay there, they're there to help us stay there.
Okay, all right. I was thinking that they were just blocking that path to the peaceful path.
No.
Okay, okay,
Good.
now I understand.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So remember, it's like it's from a top down. We're falling down. And here everything that these beings do is for the benefit of our enlightenment. Their body, speech, and mind, everything is for the enlightenment of all beings. So they're trying to help us.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
So all this is all expressive of our own ability within ourselves. So we have to apply the 5 Buddha families, the bodhisattvas, the female bodhisattvas. All this has to come together. We have to coalesce all this together. And it's done. You can do it in sections. Doesn't matter which one you do first or last, but you can begin to do it. And once you see how they kind of work together, then you can apply that to the others, and it becomes a little bit easier and so on. It's said that once you know one Buddha, you know all the Buddhas. They're all the same. It's their activities that are different.
Lance, each
Yes.
of the male gatekeepers, in addition to having the tiger skin,
Yes.
seems to have this kind of white snake with a red stripe and 4 eyes on each end. What are we actually seeing there? What's the symbolism of that?
Let me look. I think I know exactly what that is. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm.
It's almost like flayed.
Yeah, it's a skin, and very often that looks like a lion's skin. I think that is a lion's skin, is what that is. And you see, it's got the paws and so on.
Uh-huh.
So I think because the tiger skin represents courage, and the lion represents power.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So you can see that all these pictures and everything are there. They're what we call mnemonics. Are you familiar with the word mnemonic? How do you spell it? N-M-E-N-O.
MN. Yeah.
Well, a mnemonic is something, a word or a phrase or a sound or sight that you see that automatically reminds you of something much bigger than the word itself. Is that correct? Would you agree with that, Gary? So saying that this is a mnemonic, they just become, a symbol of something that opens up our mind that has already been familiar with it, and it reminds us of that, So when you hear the word Om, maybe you automatically just think about enlightenment. You think about meditation, just that. So Om is a mnemonic for meditation, for enlightenment.
Yes.
Or it can be a sight. So if you see my bell, you might see that. No, that's a mnemonic for wisdom. I automatically think of wisdom with that. So anyway, so all these pictures, all these illustrations are mnemonics of, these brilliant concepts of who it is that we are, what it is that we are, what is this Sambhogaya, what is this body of the Buddha, what is all of this? And by learning all this, we're able to free ourselves from the suffering. because all these things are speaking of love and speaking of compassion. Okay. Thank you all very much for your patience on this. I know this is difficult the first time hearing this. Maybe it's the second or third time you've heard this, but as I've said, this is all in the book. So we're going to continue with this, and so I'm going to send you some more things through email. So if you have the ability to print them, if you can't print them, let me know, and I'll print them for you and mail them to you, because it's going to have some more stuff on there that's going to help you, and then it's going to help you to consolidate your notes and so on. So, but your notes, and now comes your work to contemplate on the meaning of all this. Put this together. You do your own coalescence of all this stuff. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one session. It takes years.
Lance, what you sent in the email to all of us, would you once again relate? How would you say how it relates to what we're doing here?
What I'm going to send to you, or what I did
Oh,
send
have
you?
sent the last. I can't remember what it was. It was a PDF, maybe 100 and something pages.
100 pages.
I can't remember. I just glanced at it.
Dan, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what it might have been. It might have been something that I sent to you, especially if it's 100 pages. I don't know what that was.
Yeah. I'm actually, I didn't have a lot of time, so I really.
Maybe you better go back and take a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it something about Siddhartha?
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was only 4 pages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was about the story of Siddhartha. The book,
I think I was
Siddhartha.
probably going, oh no, I have trouble reading a lot of online stuff, so I try and refrain. I have beginning of cataracts, so more
What's
meditation.
the article about the Brahmin son, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Do you, Dan, can you print things? Do you have a printer at home?
Yes, I do. I have one.
Yeah, and that's what I encourage people to do. I mean, I don't like reading on screens. You know, I print stuff, and I appreciate that. So that's why I send it to you, that form.
Yeah.
And maybe, is it easier to read on paper than it is on the screen?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to help you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So if we can, unless somebody else has a question, I'm happy to stay later and answer questions, but I want to be respectful of people's time. So we should do our dedication, and anybody who want to stay and ask more questions is fine. Debbie, will you go and do the Amitabha prayer, please?
Emaho. In the center is the marvelous Buddha Amitabha of boundless light. On the right side is Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion. On the left is Vajrapani, the Lord of powerful means. All are surrounded by limitless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Immeasurable peace and happiness is the blissful, pure land of Dewachen. When I and all beings pass from samsara, may we be born in Dewachen without taking samsaric rebirth. May I have the blessing of meeting Amitabha face to face. By the power and blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, may I attain this aspiration without hindrance. Tayata pensadriya awa bodhanaya soha. Tayata pensadriya awa bodhanaya soha. Tayata pensadriya awa bodhanaya soha. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. By this virtue, may I achieve all knowingness by defeating all enemies' confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of suffering. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings.
Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 Om Mani Padme 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 Hum Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you,
Om
everyone.
Ahum. Om Ahum. Om Ahum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you.